Many of the nation's governors gathered in Washington, D.C. this week for the National Governors Association winter meeting, including Pennsylvania's Josh Shapiro, who's out with a new book, Where We Keep the Light: Stories from a Life of Service. I spoke with Governor Shapiro shortly after he attended a White House breakfast meeting Friday with President Trump, and he was in the room with the president when the Supreme Court ruled against his tariff policy.
He was going on and on about other topics, and an aide interrupted him, handed him a note. He read the note. He asked the aide if that meant, I think he said, we lost, as a question. The aide nodded in affirmation. He called it a disgrace, and I think he took one more question from a governor and then moved on. Look, I think the disgrace, frankly, is what he's done to our farmers in Pennsylvania, the way he's hurt consumers. Now it looks like he's going to try and make an end around, which is only going to create more chaos and higher costs for the American people.
So let's talk about the end around. He's talked about this Section 122. What does it mean? Do you think he can do it?
I think there's real legal questions. And look, we've seen now that the president was acting outside his legal authority. By the way, not a new thing for him, as someone who's had to take him to court 19 times as governor. The thing about the tariffs is he's doing it in a way that is hurting the American people, hurting our farmers, hurting consumers, hurting our small businesses. We know that. By the way, the president knows that. That's why he offered a bailout to our farmers. He acknowledged the fact that his policies are hurting Pennsylvanians, hurting Americans. I wish he would just adhere to the Supreme Court's ruling and stop the pain for the American people.
I want to touch on foreign policy. I know you're governor, but it's important to everybody in the country. You've seen this massive buildup in the Middle East, the president threatening to strike Iran. Would you support that?
I'd want to know what the president's goals are. I'd want to know what his objectives are. About the only thing we know now, thanks to reporting from you and others, is that there's been this massive buildup of military assets in the region. Look, we know the Iranians. These are the bad guys. These are the folks these are the people who are the largest exporter of terrorism around the globe. You will find no sympathy from me when it comes to the Iranians, but what I want to see from our commander-in-chief is clear purpose, clear intentions, clear directives, and I think he owes the American people that answer before engaging in military action.
Let's talk about the state of the Democratic Party right now. You said that November's election needs to be a referendum on President Trump and that Democrats need to focus on reining in the excesses, the chaos, the cruelty, the lawlessness of this administration. So what exactly is the pitch on how Democrats should do that?
I've called for a national referendum on these chaotic, cruel, and corrupt policies of the Trump administration. Show up, vote in record numbers. And if you do, it is likely we'll not only reelect a bunch of Democratic governors who are holding the line here and protecting the rule of law, but we're very likely, and by the way, maybe even just in Pennsylvania with our competitive congressional seats, to flip the balance of power in Congress. That accomplishes two things. Number one, it stops the cruel policies from passing through the Congress of the United States. And number two, Congress finally will ultimately act as a check on this administration, as is their constitutional obligation.
People in the past have focused on Donald Trump and what he's doing. What are the Democrats going to do that's different? What is that message?
I think it's how I'm governing in Pennsylvania, how other Democratic governors are governing. Let me focus on my Commonwealth. We've invested in our schools in safety and economic opportunity, and we've done so in a way that protects people's fundamental rights and freedoms. We haven't engaged in cruelty designed to attack a specific person based on what they look like or where they come from, who they love, who they pray to. That's the kind of governing that we're showing in, by the way, the swingiest of all swing states in the country, a state that has a divided legislature, one U.S. senator that's a Democrat, one that's a Republican, a divided congressional delegation.
The New York Times ran a story last week that said, why Pennsylvania's two most powerful Democrats don't speak. Is that true?
Yeah, that's not true. And I guess journalists sometimes want to conjure up a lot of drama.
How would you describe your relationship with Fetterman? Do you speak?
We have a constructive relationship to try and ensure that the people of Pennsylvania are served. He and I are obviously different people. He casts some votes and takes some positions that I strongly disagree with. But at the end of the day, my job is to serve the people of Pennsylvania.
Would you support him if he seeks re-election?
Well, he has to decide if he's seeking re-election. That's not for another cycle.
It's not for another cycle, but you think you
I don't know
support
if
him?
he's running for re-election. I think he needs to decide if he's running, and then we'll make a decision from there.
You'll make a decision once he decides. So you haven't decided
Well,
yet
he needs
whether
to
you're
decide
going
if he's,
to
he needs
support
to,
him.
He needs to decide if he's running for re-election, and then we'll make a determination thereafter.
Tom Homan, he took over in Minnesota, as you know, and he's now saying it will be different than it was with Greg Bovino. They will do these targeted raids against people they know that are there, that they think are there illegally or have committed a crime.
To me, it's less important who's in charge. What's more important is that these individuals are being sent out on what I think are compromised and unconstitutional missions, as we saw in Minneapolis. The direction's coming from the President of the United States.
If there's a surge of ICE agents into Pennsylvania, what do you do?
We are prepared. I will tell you, governors prepare for all kinds of emergencies, for a weather emergency, or God forbid a terrorist incident or a shooting, awful things like that. We are now preparing, should the federal government, against our will, deploy federal officials into our communities. It was interesting in the governor's meeting, one of the governors asked the president, what did you learn from Minnesota and what happened there? And the president said, in the way he says things, I learned we're only going to go to places where we're wanted, where people say please and thank you. We do not want that kind of chaos in our communities in Pennsylvania. So don't come. But if you come, we are prepared to address it.
Our latest ABC News Washington Post Ipsos poll found that 70% of Democrats support abolishing ICE. Do you support abolishing ICE?
I think what's clear is that ICE is not working. What's clear is that they've been engaged in unconstitutional practices, and that needs to be fixed. And I think the first step is what the Congress of the United States is doing right now to try and put some controls on that. And I want to see those controls be put into effect. Again,
but controls not abolished.
I'm not going to get caught up in labels here. It's what I said to you
it's not a label, really. It's, do you get rid of them all together, or do you try to do it better?
I think what is clear is that the manner in which they are being directed is a manner that directs them to go violate people's constitutional rights. And that is not something I support.
A theme of your book is that there's more uniting us in this country than dividing us.
Yeah.
What's uniting us?
I know it doesn't feel that way. And I actually set out to write this book to speak to the goodness that Lori, my wife Lori, and I see every day as we travel across Pennsylvania. The people who, maybe despite some political differences, are united in our communities. And in the middle of that, in the middle of writing this book about all the light that emanates from the people that I meet, darkness landed on our doorstep with that attack at the residence. But from that, we saw extraordinary light of people coming together of different faiths and praying for us. When you actually get out, particularly in my state, you find people from all different walks of life, all different faiths, who have that shared humanity, that light, that goodness. That's what I want people to take away from this book.
Our thanks to Governor Shapiro.